everyone, welcome to an episode of TCG Talk, back today with another video. Today's video, I wanted to kind of go over two parts. I wanted to do kind of like a mini tier list, although it's going to be kind of an abridged version. But I also wanted to talk about the Stubby Hammers ban and Fi and like where that puts Fi and just my overall thoughts on it. It won't be super in-depth because honestly, I don't think a whole lot changes, and that's just my opinion with where Fi is at in the meta. And I'll kind of go through that. So Fi first started out in the meta, right? Just like really go wide hero. A lot of people were using like, pre-generic Emberblade builds, and people were using pouncing links when it came to really just the Oldheim matchup or matchups where they were going to block no matter what, like Oldheim, Bravo, stuff like that. But people quickly started to realize that there's like an OTK pop-off version of Fi, and kind of went through, that iteration of it and realizing that, if Fi is going to deal damage no matter what, and then there's certain times where you can just hit for 30-40 damage off a crazy like Belittle and Spreading Flames turn with Art of War and just really like legit OTK your opponent, which put Fi in like this near uninteractable state, as far as like, unless you could heavy disrupt his hand, it really was a ticking time bomb, and the deck was really consistent. So, in light of that, LSS banned Stubby Hammers or Stubby Hammerers, which kind of eliminates Fi's ability to have that big pop off turn. At least, kind of diminishes it a little bit. So, like, what does that mean for Fi? Like, where should you play him and stuff like that? So, the first thing is, I don't think it really changes where Fi sits in the meta. I really don't. He's still like a top meta hero. He's not the deck to beat, and I really don't think there was a deck to beat in this meta personally, but he's still a top meta hero. He's going to be in my top meta area because he is a deck that you have to think about and tech against when you go to a big event, hence he's in the meta. Right now for me, the meta heroes are Fi, I think Viserai kind of moves back up into the meta hero now conversation just because he was diminished a little bit with that OTK, but it's came back. Prism is definitely a meta hero right now. And then, it kind of slightly drops off, but really you could probably put Briar up in there as well. Really the meta is kind of like this, so to speak now, I think with Fi's ban, and Bravo's really kind of getting his way up into there, but as long as Prism's kind of popular, it's gonna be hard. But anyway, this is the meta that I kind of see. Before Fi was kind of like up here with Prism. Him and Prism, I think, were kind of interchangeable, right? It kind of went that way. These two kind of were interchanging depending on how your meta looked. Fi really counters Prism pretty hard, at least in my opinion, unless she runs like full Heralds, and even then she can't block super efficient, and that pop-off turn is still insane. But even with this, I think these four are kind of the meta picks. But again, where does that take Fi? Again, meta-wise, I don't think it really diminishes the overall power and what the deck is trying to do. It just eliminates the RNG pop-off turn. I said this on Twitter, but I kind of compare this to the Viserai, like the Skeleton ban. When Skeleton was banned or suspended, right, people thought it was going to kill Viserai when it really didn't. Viserai actually did not move at all. He's still a top deck in the meta. All it did was eliminate the RNG pop-off turn. And what it also did is it kind of opened him up more for counter picks because he can't like alter his game plan now. Before, like if there was a counter pick against him, he could kind of switch to like an OTK, like or semi OTK build, but you can't really do that anymore, or at least not as easily. But it didn't really change where the hero sat because, like I said, all it did was eliminate his RNG pop-off turn, but it didn't eliminate his power, right, or his overall game plan. I think Stubby's ban is the same thing with Fi. I don't think it eliminates his overall power and what the deck is trying to do. It just eliminates like the RNG pop-off turn that just ends the game. So I think it was a healthy ban. I think it was really good. I still think Belittle needs to be taken away. Belittle's an extremely strong card. I wasn't big on Belittle when it first came out. 100% will say that. I still don't think you need Belittle for Fi to be really good. I think even without Belittle, Fi is still a good deck. All Belittle does, the reason Belittle needs to be banned is because it allows you to cut corners in your deck construction and allows you to like not play as many blues and like just play like extra free reds because you're supplementing that by searching for a blue. But again, I don't think adds to the power of the deck. It just makes the deck slightly more consistent. Anyway, I think Belittle needs to go as well, and I think we will see Belittle go in my personal opinion in the next ban at the end of August, but we'll see. Overall, I still think that these are the meta. And then you kind of have, I think I put it into 4 sections. You have the meta, right? You have counter picks. You have what I consider playable or good heroes, right? Like you could even do this, playable / good. And then you have fringe heroes, right? Because I don't think there's a bad hero. I think every hero can win a match, which is good for the game. But like your counter picks right now, in my opinion, are Dorinthia, Bravo. I think Reinhardt's a good counter pick right now. And then that's probably it. If you don't have a lot of Prism, then Oldheim moves in that conversation because he can really stall these 3 decks. But with Prism, it's just really hard. I think these are your counter picks. I think if you have a super heavy aggro meta that doesn't want to block or heroes like Dory and Bravo are just going to do amazing because now that Dory has Glistening Steelblade and Bravo has a lot of consistency and disruption, they can really hurt those aggro decks that just don't want to block and want to do their thing because you're going to force those decks to interact with you. And I think a lot of aggro decks you're going to start to see like defense reactions kind of left the meta the first half of this or the RTN season in general, but I think it's going to come back because people are going to see more Bravo, more Dorinthia, and other heroes, and they're going to have to be able to be more interactive. So I think those are the top ones. The problem with Dory and Bravo, though, is if you have a ton of Prism in your matchup, it doesn't feel good. Dory and Bravo can still play into Dramai decently, I think, but it's not as bad as Prism. But as long as there's a ton of Prism, you're not going to see a ton of Bravo and Dory. But Bravo has been doing really well as of recently, so we'll have to see. And then you have Reinhardt. I think Reinhardt's a good pick as well. I think he has a lot of consistency in the deck, and it's just a solid deck in general, so I think it's a good counter pick. As far as playable / good, you have Dash. Lexi is playable. I think that Dromai is playable. There's been several Dromais that have done well. I think the super tanky build that relies on like value dragons is really nice. I think Oldheim's playable if you don't have a lot of Prism in the meta, and he's really good against some of the more aggro-based decks. And then finally, I think Katsu is playable and Bolton is playable. These are kind of like on the downside, but they're definitely playable. I mean, Bolton just won a RTN. Katsu's won a couple. Definitely playable heroes. And then it's hard. Icelander, I think, is fringe right now just because she's really good into some of the meta, but her counter picks, like her counter heroes, are bad. I mean, Prism is near auto loss. It's pretty much an auto loss. The Prism has to screw up to win. Bravo's not a horrible matchup, but it's not a great matchup. The aggro decks you have to be extremely skilled to even fight off the aggro decks. Like, it's so funny. She was probably created to like go against aggro, but she's not quite powerful enough to stop aggro all the time, especially with Belittle. If you eliminate Belittle, I think she's definitely a lot stronger against the aggro heroes, but with Belittle, it just makes it 10 times harder. She's not good to Dromai. If Dromai gets Thamai and Dominia on the field at the same time and just swings with Dominia first, the game's pretty much over. There's nothing you can do. So it's just her counter picks are really, really, really bad, which makes it really hard for her to be relevant in the meta. And then you have Levia. I think Kano is obviously playable, like definitely a playable hero. It all depends. Sorry, doggies, quit. Sorry, I have a dog see someone outside. And then Azalea is fringe as well. I really think that the meta is pretty open right now. I think you have, all these heroes in like the first 3 sections are definitely playable, but I think the meta, when I think of the meta, I think of like what people shape around, like what are people really planning for. And I think people are planning for these 4 heroes. Like, you have to have a game plan. If you want to go far in a tournament, you need to have a solid game plan against Prism, Vi, Viserai, and Briar. Pretty simple. And then counter picks are big ones because you got to think like, okay, if I see this, what should I do, right? And then the rest of the field, you just do the best you can. But I think that this is kind of where the meta sits. Again, I don't think Vi loses his place in the meta. I don't think he's the top deck by any means. I probably would put him behind Viserai, I would say. But I also, him and Briar, it's kind of like who draws better in my opinion now at this point. They're kind of the same. That's just my opinion. yeah, that's kind of where I have the meta right now. But yeah, the Stubby Hammers ban doesn't really hurt Fi all too much. Um, it just eliminates that RNG pop off turn. I think Shuko's a heck of a card if you can plan around Shuko. Bino will come in with Lava Burst for 6. Bino will come in with Salt the Wound on +1, right? Especially if you can give it +1 from Spreading Flames from Brand with Cinderclaw. Like there's certain synergies that make it really, really good. I think my list is pretty decent with the Shuko list if you want to go check that out. But I also think like the White Rice list is what people know him by, right? The guy went 9-0 at his RTN. I think his list is going to be very popular, like that style of list with Brand with Cinder Claws and stuff like that, and really trying to go super wide and outvalue your opponent with Shuko. Yeah, I think that's going to kind of where you see that's where you're going to see Fi go early on in this next meta. But we're doing a lot of blitz right now, a lot of skirmish, so we're going to kind of take a break. But this is kind of where I see things going back as time goes on. But yeah, that's my general thoughts on the Stubby Hammers ban. Let me know what you think. Definitely gonna be interesting to see, where Fi sits. I still think he's a part of the meta, but what only time's gonna tell. And yeah, hopefully y'all like this. If you did, please do like, comment, subscribe. If not me, go to another Fleshberg career, do the same thing for them so we get more people seeing this game. And I'll see y'all next time on TCG Talk. Thank y'all so much.